The glass tower of Hawthorne Industries gleamed against the city skyline, a monument of power and money. Inside, the air was thick with tension. A team of engineers huddled around a giant blueprint sprawled across the conference table, their brows damp with sweat. At the head of the room sat Victor Hawthorne, billionaire CEO, his suit sharp as steel, his tone sharper. He leaned back in his leather chair, smirking at the panic that unfolded before him. 3 months, he said coldly. 3 months of your brightest minds and still nothing. His voice cut through the silence. Then, with cruel amusement, he tossed a tablet across the polished table. The numbers on the screen glowed red. Fix this, and I'll hand you $100 million.
Fail, and you're finished. No one spoke.
The stakes were too high. The company's future hung by a thread, and Victor knew it. He thrived on their fear. By the door, unnoticed by most, stood a woman in a faded uniform, clutching her cleaning cart. Maria the maid kept her head bowed, trying not to draw attention. But her eyes lingered on the tablet, on the code that stumped the world's top engineers. She swallowed hard. She had seen those symbols before. From behind her, a quiet voice whispered, "Mama."
I know what that is. It was her son, Daniel, barely 16, wiry from years of growing up without luxuries, but with a sharpness in his gaze that rivaled any scholar.
He had come to walk her home, but now his eyes locked onto the glowing lines of code as if it were a puzzle made just for him. Victor's laughter echoed across the room. "What's the matter?"
100 million too much pressure for you?
No one answered. But Daniel stepped forward, his voice steady despite the disbelief hanging in the air. "I can fix it." Heads whipped around. Engineers sneered. Victor froze, his smirk faltering for the first time. The room, once ruled by arrogance and silence, now belonged to a boy who had nothing to his name but a mind no one had seen coming. And in that moment, the game changed. Victor Hawthorne's brows drew together, his eyes narrowing on the boy who had dared to interrupt. "You," he said slowly, his voice thick with disbelief. "You think a janitor's kid can fix what my best-paid men cannot?" The engineers chuckled under their breath, some shaking their heads, others smirking. Daniel stood firm, unflinching under the weight of their scorn. His mother tugged at his sleeve, whispering, "Daniel, no, please." But the boy gently pulled free, his eyes locked on the glowing numbers that had reduced grown men to silence. "Give me one chance," Daniel said evenly. "If I'm wrong, I'll walk away, and you'll never hear from me again." Victor rose from his chair, the steel buckle of his belt catching the light as he leaned over the table. His voice dropped low, the smirk returning. "One chance?"
Do you even know what those figures mean, boy?
Daniel stepped closer, the polished floor reflecting his thin frame. "It's not just code," he said, surprising everyone. "It's layered, deliberately scrambled to make you chase the wrong patterns. Whoever wrote it was hiding something."
That's why your men keep failing. The room went still.
One of the engineers, a greying man with trembling fingers, looked at Daniel with dawning horror, as if he had just realized the boy was right. Victor studied him for a long, dangerous moment. Then, with a flick of his wrist, he shoved the tablet toward Daniel.
Fine, he said, his voice laced with mockery.
"Show me, genius." "The room is yours." Daniel sat, the oversized leather chair nearly swallowing him. His fingers flew over the glass screen, his brow furrowed in concentration. Symbols, lines, and formulas danced under his touch. The engineers watched, a mixture of disdain and creeping awe tugging at their faces. Maria wrung her hands near the door, her heart hammering. She whispered a prayer under her breath, tears stinging her eyes. 5 minutes passed, then 10. Silence gripped the room like a vice, broken only by the rapid tapping of Daniel's hands. And then, beep. The red warnings vanished. The impossible code unraveled before their eyes, clean and flawless, exposing the answer none of the experts had even glimpsed. Victor Hawthorne leaned forward, stunned. His lips parted as he stared at the boy. The laughter was gone, the arrogance too. Daniel looked up, calm and steady. "There," he said simply.
"It's done." The room erupted, gasps, mutters, the scrape of chairs.
But Victor didn't move. For the first time in years, the billionaire CEO was silent, undone not by an empire or a rival, but by a maid's son. Victor's silence stretched long enough to make every man in the room uneasy. His fingers drummed once on the mahogany table, sharp as a gunshot. Then he stood, slow and deliberate, his gaze fixed on Daniel like he was studying a rare, dangerous creature. "You just did what my best men couldn't in 3 months," Victor said, his voice low and measured.
A janitor's boy, cracking the code that crippled an empire. Daniel swallowed hard, but held his ground.
"You said 100 million.
"That was your promise!" The engineers erupted in protest. "This is absurd!"
He's a child, he must have cheated."
"There's no way he—" Victor silenced them with a raised hand.
His eyes never left Daniel.
"Do you know what you've touched, boy?"
That code wasn't just numbers, it was the key to everything I own. Daniel met his gaze. "Then you should be glad I fixed it," Maria gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. She wanted to pull her son away, shield him from the fire in Victor's eyes. But Daniel sat steady, as if he'd been waiting for this moment his whole life. Finally, Victor let out a laugh, short, sharp, and unsettling. He turned to his men.
"Get out, all of you!" The engineers exchanged nervous glances, but none dared argue.
One by one, they filed out until only Victor, Maria, and Daniel remained in the vast, echoing room. Victor stepped closer, his shadow falling across the boy. He crouched low, their faces level now, and spoke in a tone that carried both menace and respect.
"You've just changed your life forever, Daniel.
The question is, will you live to enjoy it?" Maria's breath caught, and Daniel's knuckles tightened around the edge of the tablet. The billionaire CEO had made his move, but whether it meant reward or ruin was still hanging in the balance. Victor rose to his full height, towering over both mother and son. He walked back to his chair with the deliberate steps of a man who knew every heartbeat in the room belonged to him. When he sat down, he poured himself a drink, the ice clinking loud in the silence. Then finally, he spoke. "The 100 million, he paused, savoring the weight of the words.
"Is yours." Maria staggered back, her hand clutching the edge of the chair.
Daniel blinked in disbelief, his breath catching as though the air had been stolen from the room. Victor leaned forward, his sharp eyes narrowing. "But don't mistake this for charity. I'm not a man who throws money at fools. You've proven yourself, boy. You've proven that brilliance can come from dirt."
"And brilliance like that?"
He lifted his glass.
"I buy. I own." Maria stepped forward, her voice trembling.
"He's not for sale."
"He's just a boy." Victor smirked.
"That may be true. But in my world, talent is more valuable than bloodlines, than degrees, than power. Your son just walked into my empire and exposed every weakness I didn't know I had. He belongs at my side." Daniel spoke quietly, but his words cut clean through the tension.
"I don't belong to anyone." Victor's glass froze halfway to his lips.
He studied Daniel with a new kind of interest, not anger, but something sharper, hungrier. "You remind me of myself," he murmured. Then his smile returned, cold and razor-thin. "But even the strongest minds need protection.
And in this city, without me, you and your mother wouldn't last a day."
So the choice is simple. Accept my offer or learn what it means to refuse me." Maria's heart pounded. Daniel sat straighter, refusing to flinch. The boy who had grown up fixing broken things with nothing but scraps was now staring down the most dangerous man in the city. And in that silence, Maria realized the test wasn't over. It had only just begun.